Hello and welcome to the BCU Alumni podcast. I'm Bethan from BCU's Alumni team, and in each episode we welcome a different member of the BCU Alumni community back onto campus to tell us all about what they've been up to since they graduated. Today we're joined by Keith Scobie-Youngs. Keith graduated in Horology from BCU's School of Jewellery back in 1984 before he founded his own business, the Cumbria Clock Company, which maintains and repairs clocks across the world. Keith's company, which employs 22 people, are responsible for the maintenance of the country's oldest clock in Salisbury Cathedral. They also often work on the most important astronomical clock at Hampton Court Palace, as well as major restorations at Leeds Town Hall, Manchester Town Hall, Durham, Hereford and Worcester cathedrals, and the country's largest clock dials on the Royal Liver building in Liverpool. In recent years, though, Keith's main focus has been on the working of the restoration of Big Ben, the timepiece on Queen Elizabeth Tower in Westminster. In this episode, we are going to find out more about Keith's life and career and how he has built his business, what it has been like to work on landmark clocks all over the world, the importance of heritage crafts and courses like horology, and what his lasting legacy will be. Keith, thanks so much for coming on to the podcast today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I've been really lucky actually over the last few years to work with you on quite a few things, so obviously it's great to see you again. You studied here back in the 80s, so what was it like to be a student in Birmingham back then?
For me, it was wonderful because I'd been brought up in a little village in the Gloucestershire, and to come to Birmingham and to be immersed in so many different cultures and meeting different people. And Birmingham was such a different place. It was much more industrial than it is now. And when I went to Victoria Street with the School of Jewellery, the jewellery quarter was a lot more active. So there's a lot of hubbub and a lot of connections between the school and the jewellery quarter. So I had a great time. It was very, very fundamental in forming what I became later in life.
So what was it that led you to study horology in the first place then?
It's quite straightforward, really. I'm one of 5 children, and my father was a teacher of metalwork, woodwork and technical drawing at a local comprehensive school in Gloucestershire. Mm-hmm. And at the age of 14, my father kind of always brought me and my brother up working with our hands. And I was at the stage where looking at what I wanted to do when I left school, and he suggested clockmaking. So I went to the local library, got a book out on clockmaking, started making bits in his workshop, and then he suggested I should go to Birmingham. He looked up the courses, and I came here as a 17-year-old straight out of school.
So after graduating then, what did you kind of go on to do first? And at what point was it that you set up the business?
It was a bit of a journey, really. I had a great time in Birmingham. That I really enjoyed the course. There was only 5 people per year back then, with two lecturers. Yeah. And then I always wanted to go to London, so off I went to London, hoping to get a job doing the kind of domestic clocks and repairs, which I'd studied at college. But I couldn't get a job. And the jobs I were offered were very poorly paid, which kind of reflects some of going on now. Yeah. And I got offered a job doing church and public clocks, and I thought, well, I'll do that until a proper job came along. And I just fell in love with it. I was travelling around London and the home counties, going to wonderful buildings, seeing these wonderful clocks. It combined other things like steeplejacking, working in wood, lead work. So it really did push my skills and working out and about, which was great. Whilst I was there, I met my wife Lynn in London, and we decided to get married. And I realised I needed to earn more money, so I was going to go and get a job doing set building. But Lynn said, "No, you're a good clockmaker. Let's go and set up the Cumbria Clock Company." So we left London aged 26 in 1990, and headed up to the Lake District to set up the Cumbria Clock Company with Lynn.
Can you tell me about your workshop in Cumbria? It just sounds so picturesque.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing with Lynn and myself setting up the Cumbria Clock Company, we were very, very keen to do conservation and restoration. The horological world in public clocks was moving away from that. It was going more for making new fiberglass clocks, electric movements, which wasn't my thing. And so together, me and Lynn set up the company. We had a very small workshop at Blencathra Business Centre, and we started working there. And the hard part was kind of getting a reputation of being able to do good work, because at the time the horological industry in turret clocks was ruled by kind of firms which had been around for 100 odd years, if not more. So it was a slow burn, and we always knew we had a couple of things in our mind. One was that we weren't going to be frightened of employing people. And secondly, we wanted to make our own products. That was important. And so that's what we started to do. And we employed somebody within a couple of years of forming the Cumbria Clock Company. We then started designing and making our own products, which were for conservation and restoration of the clocks, making automatic winding systems, making light silencer systems, all these things which you needed to make. And then we moved from that small unit to another one in the same business centre, expanded a bit more, making more stuff, working all over the country by then, because it became evident that I had to go wherever the work was. So it meant long car journeys and to make whatever money we could. And Lynn would work beside me. Lynn would be working on the building sites in the 80s as a clockmaker with me. And then we eventually brought some workshops in the village of Dacre. In 1996, we brought a 1,200 square foot old tractor shed, and we set the company up in there and continued to just grow. And we stayed there, and we ended up employing my nephew Peter, who actually came to Birmingham, and Mark, who's been with us and still with us, and a couple of other guys. And we soon outgrew that, and then we moved to where we are now, which is nearly 8,000 square feet of workshop behind a medieval castle in the village of Dacre. It's idyllic, it's an old farm buildings which are being converted, which have their pros and cons. And now from there we have 23. We just employed somebody new this week. Then don't all work from there. We have satellite engineers.
Okay.
Ones which work. We have one based in Devon. We have one in Dorset. We have another in Shropshire. We have another in Derbyshire. We have one in Leeds, and so forth. So we have these satellite engineers who we supply the work to, and that's where we are now.
You've worked on some incredible projects. How have these opportunities come about then, and what have been some of your biggest highlights?
It's an incredible journey. I'd never believed that we would be working on some of the clocks that we work on now. I think it's just a case of we backed the right horse at the right time in going into conservation and restoration, and that became very important to all the churches. Clocks in churches are protected, so they can't be removed, so that you have to keep those traditional skills alive. And because we've been passionate about doing that, I think that's why we've been able to get a reputation for doing this good work. I mean, there's been so many. There's been the prestigious ones which you've mentioned already. There's been working away down in Fiji, which was just remarkable. That was a fantastic project to do. But also down to the little churches. There's a little church in a village of Buckland, which was one of my most enjoyable jobs I did nearly 25 years ago. So it's about the clock, it's about the object which is in there, as well as the prestigious buildings that we also work on.
Your team obviously worked on the restoration of Big Ben then.
Yeah.
I mean, that's got to be the most famous clock in the world.
It is the most famous clock in the world. You can go anywhere in the world and say, I worked on Big Ben, and everybody knows what gig you did. Yes.
Can you talk me through how that came around then, and what it has been like to be involved in the work? And am I actually right in thinking that you originally went up the clock tower when you were a student?
That's right. Well, part of the third year at Birmingham when I was here was that you had a trip up Big Ben. And I'd have been 20 then, and I'd have never imagined that I'd ever be undertaking the largest restoration of the famous clock.
Yeah.
And we kind of, I saw it then. I worked in London, as I explained, for a company. 3 of those people had been heavily involved in the restoration of the Westminster clock when it broke down in 1977. So they used to tell me the stories about it, and I used to think then, well, I'll never work on it. So when the opportunity arose to be part of that team, and funny enough, working with the Palace Clock team of Alex and Hugh and Paul, there's a chap, Ian, who is also ex-Birmingham, who works as part of the clock team. So there's more of a Birmingham connection.
Yeah.
And when we got the contract to do it, it was a case of kind of pinching yourself, to believe that you're actually going to do this work. And and it tested all of our skills. I mean, everybody at the Cumbria Clock Company did something. Not everybody worked on site, but they did something in the workshop or became part of it. So it was a massive team effort. And, we made a replica set of hands and new movements because they always had to have a dial showing the right time. And because we were having to remove the whole original clock, we had to make one of those. We made a tolling unit so that they could strike the bell for Remembrance Sunday and for New Year's Eve, and also sadly for the passing of Her Majesty the Queen. Mm-hmm. And then the whole clock movement was brought up to our workshops in secret, which was good fun. It was our little secret, that everybody in the village knew. It wasn't quite kind of Dad's Army world where the locals are hiding in haystacks, but there were lots of people who knew, but it didn't get out. The press didn't find out about it, and we just worked through the whole clock with the Palace Clock team there, and restored it back to what it was originally. We took full sets of drawings, we took full sets of photographs, we overhauled the auto winding system, which had been with it for over 100 years, would not worked properly for a long time. And it's just remarkable. When it was during COVID and it kind of put a delay on the project, we had the clock still ticking away in our workshops. And it's like having the heartbeat of the UK in our test room in Cumbria, which was great, And then putting the whole thing back in, and the whole kind of course of events where you're putting this clock back in. There's a lot going on because they're trying to finish the tower. Mm-hmm. And we made lots of friends, new connections. And as I often say, the Elizabeth Tower is not just a clock tower to me now. It's a beacon, a 97-metre high beacon for heritage craft skills, because there's so much going on there. Not just clock making, there's gilding, painting, glazing, stonework, and loads of young people kind of realising they're given this privilege to work on the tower.
We're actually displaying your replica Big Ben dials as part of the alumni exhibition.
Yeah.
Do you have replicas for all the clocks you work on then, or was that just a special
That was just a special, because we had to make a set of hands so that we could put them on the dial and they could show the correct time. We wanted to make them so they looked as much like the original, so all the tourists coming by wouldn't think, oh, they look rubbish. We wanted them to look like the proper dial. And for nearly 2 years, they were perhaps the most photographed object in London. So we've got this set which we'll put on display with one of the drive units, and it gives an impression of how big those dials are. 22.5 foot diameter dials are big, and I would suggest while they're here, if people can come along and get their photograph, come and take them. It's a good opportunity for a good photograph.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah.
You've had an incredible career then, thanks to your experience and skills in horology. So how important are courses like horology then? And would you say that heritage crafts are in danger?
Watches and clocks are that link through generations. I wear my father's watch. He brought that in Venice in 1947, and I wear it now. And he's told me the stories of when he wore it. I tell mine, and it'll pass on down my family. That you can't put a value on that, and we can't lose the skills to make sure that these keep going. The same with clocks. You wind that clock in your mantelpiece. You could have several generations of your family doing that. And the same with turret clocks. They're kind of like the backbone of history. They're the sinews which hold the history together. They're timed. These clocks, like Big Ben, tick away time. So horology is really important, and the courses are really important. And as the advert says, you never really own a watch. You're passing it on. And so we have to make sure those skills are alive. And Birmingham is one of the only places where you can go and do that. There is a massive need for watchmakers now. I mean, watches are still very, very popular. And you could go and study at Birmingham, do your degree, come out of there as a graduate, go and get a job which is relatively well paid. But also you can travel the world. Those skills can go out to America, to Australia, to Germany, wherever you want to go. And there is a career path within that. So it's really, really important we keep them going. Horology is on the red list, the 200 endangered heritage craft skills. and without Birmingham, we could be in a big mess, really. I mean, I know I'm biased, but I think the benefits are not just a career, but to be able to do and work with your hands is something which is incredibly satisfying and rewarding. And I think, unfortunately, at schools nowadays, young people aren't getting the opportunity to take things apart, and the enjoyment we all got from that, especially from my generation. And I kind of like to think that we can bring this back into schools, and people can get what the rewards I've got from it.
Yeah.
And then you might get a watchmaker who decides that he wants to move into clocks and eventually turret clocks, and that person could be the next person undertaking the next renovation of Big Ben or something else. So that's important we keep them alive.
Both your son and nephew have also studied horology here at BCU. So it's so great to see your whole family have such a connection to the School of Jewellery. Yeah. It must be really special to see them following in your footsteps.
I'm mentally proud of seeing that happen. But that pride also goes to the School of Jewellery itself as well. When I stand outside, even now, I'm very proud of that school. And it's just nice to see, Callum was the last one to come through it. Peter went through 20 odd years ago, perhaps even more, and getting the same feeling from it that I got. And I mean, he's just one of hundreds of students who have had that. But it does make me smile. When he was there in his final year, it did make me smile.
When I first met you a few years ago, you told me that you are really keen to build a legacy and you want to leave something behind for future generations. So what are your plans around this?
It's really interesting. I mean, the company is moving on, and I'm coming to the end of running the Cumbria Clock Company. I've got a few more years left in me, but, and I mean, I want to make sure that continues, that company continues with those heritage craft skills, keeping the clocks throughout the UK working and throughout the world if we can. These clocks, I've often said, these clocks can work for 500 years, 1,000 years. They're brilliant. But the only reason they won't is we'll lose the skills. And so what I'd like to end up doing when I finish working is to leave a training program of all the things I've learned, all the things I've been taught by those people I work for in London, and put that all together and leave that and make sure that people can be trained in my field of horology and turret clock horology. And if I can do that and leave a workshop fully equipped and the people there enjoying what I've enjoyed, I don't think you can ask much more, can you?
This is something we like to do in every episode, a Birmingham quickfire round. Blues or Villa?
I'm not a football man, so I'm going to say Moseley RFUC.
What is your favourite Brummie landmark?
Well, would you forgive me if I said Big Brum at Birmingham University? If not the bull ring from the 1980s, you can have that one.
Oh, Old Joe.
Old Joe. Oh yeah, Old okay. Joe. That's right. Yeah.
Well, okay, I'll let you off with that one. It is a clock.
It's a clock, but
And what is your favourite Brummie word?
I had to think about that one. ER. Right.
ER.
As ER. It's from a joke from Ozzy Osbourne. That's where I'm going to leave it.
You've been selected as one of our industry icons at this year's Alumni Festival. So what does that mean to you?
I'm really very touched by that. I never thought that would happen to me. And there's going to be a load of people who are there who, in my eyes, have achieved a lot more than me. And it's just very humbling to be here, even now doing this with you.
Yeah.
But I'm very proud of it. It's nice that I've got that recognition. You can't deny that. But I find it a bit strange.
Final question then. If you could go back to your very first day here at BCU, what is the one piece of advice that you would give yourself?
It gave me everything I wanted. I think I had really good lecturers. I don't know what advice I'll give a young Keith without getting into trouble.
Keith, thanks so much for coming on the podcast today.
It's been fab.
And we can't wait to see you again very soon.
Look forward to that. Thank you.